In this short video, I'm going to take a look at the wooden Christmas tree build plan for Christmas 2020. I want to walk you through all of the steps for cutting the parts and putting everything together. I know some of you may be doing different aspects or different parts of the build, but I want to walk through the whole thing just so you have an idea of what's involved in actually putting everything together. Whenever you open the plan, you'll see the final form of the tree here. Each tree is going to be almost 7 feet tall, about 4.5 feet wide. And we are making everything one uniform size this year. We're not creating different sizes of these just to streamline the process and make things a little easier. Whenever you come to page 2, I've got a materials list here and a tools list below. On the materials list, these are all things that we would be able to provide you, of course. And there's two different ways we can do this. We can either pick up the material and have you come pick it up at the church, or you can pick up the material and give us your receipts and we will reimburse you. Either way works just fine. Just let us know which way you prefer and we'll get it all taken care of. Underneath here, these are tools that are going to make your job a lot easier. Of course, you can do about anything with just a circular saw. However, a miter saw definitely is going to make this a lot easier from two standpoints. Number one, you can get a lot more precise with your angles. And number two, this gives you the option to set up a stop block for the few repeated cuts that you'll have throughout the build. You also want to drill, and you can do this with one drill, but having two drills or a drill and an impact driver will definitely make it easier. And then you'll need some type of pocket hole jig. One of the most popular on the market is the Craig pocket hole jig, and they make this at a ton of different price points. You can get something really simple for just a few dollars, all the way up to a full-blown standalone pocket hole jig that's $400. So if you've got anything that allows you to cut pocket holes, this will definitely be necessary for this. And then the final thing, if you've ever assembled furniture or assembled anything using pocket holes, you know that if you have a clamp to hold boards together while driving in the pocket hole screws, it makes things a lot easier and you end up with a much cleaner final product. Once you have all of your material, we're going to start by cutting the slats. You could really start with either way, but the slats are definitely the easiest part of the build. You'll first want to start by breaking all of your lumber down to its rough final size. And I've given you a cut diagram here. You see that these are color coded and the numbers, of course, refer to one another. So this is how all of your material will be broken down throughout the build. For the very top piece right here, this is 10 3/4 inches wide by 15.5 inches tall. And we're just finding that it's probably going to be easier to have a sheet of plywood, 3/4 inch plywood to cut this out of. You don't need a huge piece. You shouldn't need a full piece. If you're able to get like a 2 foot by 4 foot section of plywood, that's going to suffice, and that should make about 6 trees. So the first thing you want to do, cut all of your lumber to size, and then you're going to turn your miter saw to 20 degrees, and we're going to create a 70-degree angle on the edge of these boards. Whenever you line these up in their final form on the frame, and we actually attach them to the frame, it should make a straight line from the point down here all the way up to the tip of number 8. Same thing on this side. That 20-degree angle is just for the slats. You'll see that the frame, of course, would be angled as well, but it's going to set at a different angle, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment. Now, I've given you all of the measurements down here, of course, on all the boards, but I know that this is a little hard to see, and if you're not looking at it on a device where you can, zoom way in, it's going to be hard to see. So I've also included these angles up here in the written instructions as well. Okay, once the slats are done, you're going to then want to move on to the frame. And here's kind of a side profile of what the frame looks like. The frame is actually made of two different parts. You have the front section, which will hold all of the slats. And then you have this section, which is basically the same size as this, minus the A on top here. And this just gets attached with a piano hinge and it kicks backwards. And that's how the tree stands up. Here's your frame cut list, and just like the slats cut list, I have everything color coded and numbered so you can see that, and these dimensions are even smaller. So I do put these dimensions up here as well. One thing to note as you're cutting this, you'll see here on boards 5, I should say, this is really important because the final dimension, and I mention it right down here, the final dimension of board 5 from point to point on one side is going to be 3 feet 2.5 inches. However, since these miter cuts are parallel to one another, you're going to want to cut the board whenever you're breaking down your material. You're going to want to cut that to 3 feet 3 5/16 of an inch. And that way, whenever you cut your parallel miters, it's going to shorten the board, of course. And so that will give you your final dimension there. That was a mistake I made in the prototype, and one that I want you to be aware of so that your board doesn't come up too short and that these sections can mirror one another here. And next section, talking about assembling the frame. This is where all of the pocket holes come in. You can cut the pocket holes however you see fit, but do make sure you cut them on the same side for all of them. So you're going to want to cut pocket holes in boards 4 and 3, and it will work best for you to cut the pocket holes in board 2 as well. Just cut them at the angle, and then you can put your screws into board 1 right there. What I found is that it's best to first put together 1 and 2, get those assembled, and then put in 3 and 4. And I've given you the relative heights here of where 3 and 4 should fit. The main thing is it needs to be around 2 feet 10 inches. The bottom of board 3 needs to be around 2 feet 10 inches. And then the clearance on board 4 needs to be around 8 1/4 inches. On board number 4, of course, this is all relative. It's relative to how your frame goes together, but somewhere in this neighborhood is where those boards should fit. You can also see this here. That's going to be the same for the back leg as well. Board 4 will be up the same amount, 8 1/4 inches, and board 3 up 2 feet 10 inches. And then once your frame is together, then you're going to put on the slats. Now, before you put on the slats, and I don't have this in the build notes here, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Before you put on the slats, we're going to need to paint the frame black, and the slats will be a whitewash on the white sections and burlap on the burlap sections. And really, we're going to kind of mix and match these patterns here a little bit. So the main thing that will be helpful is if you can assemble the frames and cut out the slats, and we get a bunch of those in here, then we can take it from here and we can set up a time together that we can all get together and kind of paint the white board and put on the burlap, and then we can nail all of the boards to the frame at that time. Now, if you're ambitious and you want to do all of that as well and just, bring them in their final form, that's great. And reach out to me and I'll give you more information on what kind of finish we use. Basically, on the frame, we use black spray paint, and I found a white stain that I'll give you information on if you decide to do that. We also have a bunch of burlap that we could hand off to you if you wanted to do that as well. But the main thing is just getting everything to an assembled form, and the finishing process will go a lot faster at that point. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks.